The nominal public debt stock stood at 7.74 trillion, equivalent to 69% of the GDP at the end of June 2021. This comprised, Mr. Speaker, of Kenya shillings 4 trillion external debt and 3.7 trillion domestic debt, attracting a punitive high average interest rate of 11% per annum. It is notable, Mr. Speaker, that the guaranteed debt stood at 158.78 billion, mainly to Kenya Airways, Kenya Post Authority, Kenya Power and Lighting Company, Kenya Electricity Generating Company PLC Limited, Kenya Railways. Mr. Speaker, the total debt stock has risen from approximately 2.1 trillion in 2013 to Kenya shillings 7.7 trillion, representing a total nominal growth of Kenya shillings 5.64 trillion, or a cumulative growth of 368%, representing a total nominal growth of 5.64. Further, Mr. Speaker, at the end of June 2021, the total loan commitments, both disbursed and undisbursed debts, stood at 9.4 trillion. The total loan commitments, Mr. Speaker, therefore, exceeds the public debt ceiling of 9 trillion as approved by Parliament and also this House in 2019, contrary to Article 211 of the Constitution, read together with Section 50, subsection 2 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, saying that, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister for National Treasury has borrowed outside the law and outside the approval of this House. Mr. Speaker, the huge loan commitment has been due to borrowing by the national government, one, to repay loans, and for recurrent operations, including salaries and payment of loan commitment fees. Mr. Speaker, the use of borrowing to finance recurrent operation violates the provisions of Article 201 of the Constitution and Section 15, subsection 2C of the PFM Act 2012. More so, Mr. Speaker, inefficiencies in drawing down borrowing by the implementing government agencies have led to the loss of public funds and imprudent and irresponsible use of public money, contrary to the principle of public finance as stipulated in Article 201, subsection D of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the development expenditure by the national government is to promote an equitable development of the country, including by making special provisions for marginalized groups and areas. However, Mr. Speaker, there is no approved criteria in the allocation of development expenditure programs in various counties. The public debt, Mr. Speaker, and I want the House to listen to me, the public debt per person today stands at 165,000, regardless of which part of Kenya you live. So each Kenyan is paying 165 regardless you live. 165 allocation of development expenditure programs in various counties. The public debt, Mr. Speaker, and I want the House to listen to me, the public debt per person today stands at 165,000, regardless of which part of Kenya you live. So each Kenyan is paying 165, regardless of whether you live in the north, in the Rift, in the central or any other part of the country. So all of us are paying for this debt. Honorable Speakers, against this background, that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Budget Committee. And the Speaker, I remember you ordering the Budget Committee to have a subcommittee on debt management to address the following questions. Could the chairperson state the actual total loan commitment, both disbursed and undisbursed debts to date, including a breakdown by lender and terms of repayment? So that we want to know how much are we getting from China and other bilateral organizations. 2, what is the total public guaranteed debt, including dormant loans by state-owned enterprises and action taken by the National Treasury for recoveries? 3, could the chairperson provide list of all ministries, departments, and agencies who failed to draw down their loan balances on the time, leading to utilization of public debts for payment of commitment fees totaling to Kenya shilling 1,657,544,758.23 as of June 30th, 2021. 4, Mr. Speaker, could the chairperson state the steps being taken by the National Treasury to ensure prudent and responsible use of public money to the principle of public finance in Article 201D of the Constitution and Section 15, subsection 2C of the PFM Act 2012. 5, Mr. Speaker, what is the total national government budgetary allocation and actual expenditures for development programs per county for the financial year beginning with 2013-2014, 2014-2015, 2015-2016, 2016-2017, 2017-2018, 2018-2019, 2019-2020, 2020-2021, and 2021-2022, including the list of development projects and costs incurred by the national government. Speaker, that will tell us that everybody who pays for this debt must also get the benefit of the loans. 6, Mr. Speaker, and finally, could the chairperson explain the criteria used by the National Treasury in the allocation for development expenditure programs to various regions of the country from the financial year 2013-2014 to the current financial year 2020-2022. Mr. Speaker, outside this statement, so that you can give direction, I raise the matter of the independent power producers, Mr. Speaker, through a statement here. And you directed the chair of energy to conduct an inquiry. Mr. Speaker, since then, as the committee is conducting inquiry, a lot of things has happened in the country done by the executive. Number 1, Mr. Speaker, the same evening that I raised this matter, the president formed a task force to deal with it. 2, once the task force gave in that report, Mr. Speaker, one of the recommendations was the suspension of the negotiation of the IPPs. A lot of reshuffle was done within that ministry, and Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, government has now taken over, purportedly, KPLC. Speaker, government cannot take KPLC, which is a listed company in the stock exchange. So, Mr. Speaker, I really wanted to ask you to direct the committee. If they are taking too long, then they should give what we call a status report, so that we know. I mean, the House cannot act in vain. As the committee has called all the IPPs, it looks like the executive, which is very good, is trying to fix the problem. But, Mr. Speaker, the animal in the room, the elephant in the room in this matter are two things. The disclosure of who are the owners of these IPPs. 2, Mr. Speaker, since the IPPs began, every month each IPP is getting close to 200 million shilling. 200 million shilling per month. One company alone, Mr. Speaker, called Rabai Power Plant, received in the financial year 2019-2020 2.4 billion for not supplying power. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a matter of great national importance. Speaker, we need to tell the Energy Committee that every time we raise a matter here, then the executive rushes to sanitize the problem. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want you to ask the committee, where have they reached? What is the status report of that inquiry, which is now over 2 months old, Mr. Speaker?
The Chair of Budget. The Chair of Budget Committee. The Chair of Budget and Appropriations Committee. He has forgotten the calendar of Parliament. Does he have a deputy? Who's the Vice Chair of Budget? Who? Shinali. Shinali. Majority Whip, you are in the Budget Committee. Why don't you stand in for them?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that question Honorable Dwale has asked has given a lot of statistics. And I want to respond, Honorable Speaker, both as a person who understands numbers and as the Majority Whip. That's a detailed question, Honorable Speaker. It requires a statement. It requires serious answers, and it will enlighten the country and the public to know where we stand, because we are paying and every Kenyan is going to pay. Therefore, I'll seek that, and also considering that next week, Honorable Speaker, in line with the calendar of the House, we will be going on recess. I would want to urge Honorable Dwale that immediately after recess, late budget should have come with a statement that first week after recess. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Energy Committee. The Chair of Energy has become a very rare face here these days. The member for Nakuru Town East. Does he have a deputy, that one? Who's the deputy? Honorable Dwale, you're in trouble. It looks like you're seeking statements from the rocks. Suddenly, the Honorable Sankok does not sit in the Energy Committee. Majority Whip, can you convey the message to the Honorable Gikaria that we need actually a status, because they purported to carry out some hearings at some point. Let them give an update. Even if they may have they can't keep everything in the fridge. Let them give an update of where they are next week. When is the next week?
Much obliged, Speaker.
Next request is by the member from Vita, the Honorable Abdul Swamad Sharif. Member from Vita. But the member from Vita has a request for a statement. And he has chosen not to be present. So his request is dropped. No, nobody else can do that. And even if you wanted to do it, that must be communicated to me officially. Honourable members, please, the reason why I don't allow a member to just rise in their place and claim I'm asking a question on behalf of another member, or I'm seeking the statement on behalf of another one without, first of all, officially communicating to the Speaker is to avoid a situation whereby a member will come later and say, I never told that person to do so. Because then you would put the Speaker in an embarrassing situation. I have no way of knowing who has communicated with who, in which manner, and in which environment, because you never know. The environment where the communication could happen could be very different. Maybe the member could be at duress, and he will come and say that he made the request at duress. Honorable Kavinga, what is your point of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You've just given a ruling of a statement to be responded to by Wednesday next week. And Wednesday next week, Honorable Speaker, is a holiday.
Very well.
And this year's Mashujaa Day will be celebrated in Mwea, Honorable Speaker. And I take this opportunity to welcome members to come. They will have an opportunity to see how green the area is when rice is growing, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
The member for Mwea, in which the stadium where the celebrations, this year's Mashujaa Day celebrations will be held, is notifying us. But I suspect he may not be the one making official invitations because I have seen the list of those who have been invited and does not include all members. So the member for Mwea, if all members turn up, then it must be you to show them where do we accommodate them, because some other people are the ones who are doing the invitations. But I'm sure you don't mind visitors. I know you like visitors.
Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to clarify that there are official invitations to the stadium, and there are those informal invitations to our facilities, like the good hotels that we have. People can book themselves there for a day or two, Honorable Speaker. And as people know, our people are the best in this continent.
Then I think the chairman of members, Committee on Members, Facilities and Services should lead everybody else, because the Honorable Kabinga is inviting people to go and sample facilities. Member for Nakuru Town East, who is the chair of Energy Committee. The House sits at 2:30. It is now 12 minutes past 3. You are being required to give an update on the request for a statement by the Honorable Duale.
Honorable Speaker, I'm sorry for coming late, but it finds always when you are looking for me, it's the only day that I'm not here on time. But I apologize for coming late. I've had, Honorable Speaker, it is true you directed that we do a public inquiry. Honorable Speaker, we have done that, and we are done with all the 19 IPPs. We have also called the Solicitor General. Again, we are done. The only frustration that we are getting, Honorable Speaker, and we have resulted as per the standing order now, is to summon Treasury. Because Treasury, as per the standing order now, is directed that we do a public inquiry. Honorable Speaker, we have done that, and we are done with all the 19 IPPs. We have also had, Honorable Speaker, it is true you directed that we do a public inquiry. Honorable Speaker, we have done that, and we are done with all the 19 IPPs. We have also called the Solicitor General. Again, we are done. The only frustration that we are getting, Honorable Speaker, and we have resulted as per the standing order now, is to summon Treasury. Because Treasury is also plays a part in the signing of the agreements. And the Treasury has, in fact, we were to meet with them yesterday. And again, they have written a third letter saying that they want it to be rescheduled. So we have resulted now, tomorrow when we'll be meeting for our committee meeting, we have resolved now to summon Treasury so that we can be able to, actually 2 weeks ago we were retreating to write a report. But again, Treasury failed to show up. But we are done with all the 19 IPPs and any other person who was involved, including the ministry. So the person who is left only to give us their evidence is Treasury, who have so far refused to come. But they have been indicating, give us 3 weeks. The first time we gave them 2 weeks, then they asked for another additional 2 weeks, which we gave. But now again, that was yesterday, they said they are not available. That's why we have not been able to clear. But we are hoping by tomorrow we'll be summoning them to appear before us so that we can be able to finalize. And we are very sorry, Honorable Speaker, for having taken quite some time to have finalized on that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And honorable members, please, committee chairs, you know, it cannot be that people are invited to appear and they don't appear. Proceed to apply the law on those who fail to appear. Fail, refuse, and or neglect. It can't be, even committee members have other things to do. So when they fail to appear, just apply the law. And when it becomes extreme, report it here. We will deal with them. You know? But not on this one. Because you are not in this one, Honorable Ishomo.
I have. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your indulgence. And indeed, I honestly sympathize with the Honorable Gikaria, the Chair Energy. But Honorable Speaker, if you listen to the other weighty issues that the Honorable Duale has raised in his request for a statement today, some that are, as the majority whip said, are very weighty matters. But Honorable Speaker, I can tell you, having served as a chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee over the years, that Honorable Duale is requesting, especially the development expenditure on, and my good friend Dr. Makali there would bear me witness, what the Leader of Majority Emeritus is asking for, Honorable Speaker, is to open a Pandora's box. Honorable Speaker, the fact that the Treasury has not been able to appear before the Energy Committee, Honorable Speaker, I would beg, Honorable Speaker, that indeed in line with your view, the Energy Committee moves to apply whatever measures they need to apply legally to get the CES finance to appear before the committee. The issue of IPPs, Honorable Chair, and it was mentioned by the Leader of Majority, is a scandalous process that has happened in this country over the last close to 30 years. More importantly, Honorable Speaker, and that's what I want to come to, since they are here to meet the Treasury, is to ask and request the Chair of the Energy Committee to tie that up with now what Honorable Duale has called the takeover. And it is indeed what was described as a special project, making KPLC a special project, and get to ask the National Treasury. One, when you remember, Honorable Speaker, when Uchumi was taken over by government as a special project, trading of the Uchumi supermarket shares at the Nairobi Stock Exchange was suspended. Would want the Chair Energy to establish from the National Treasury, because it is an interministerial committee that involves the National Treasury that has been formed to deal with the energy issues with IPPs. Have they suspended trading of Kenya Power and Lighting Company shares at the Nairobi Securities Exchange? Honorable Speaker, it is important that we protect not just our national assets, but also protect private equity. And it is a fact that KPLC has private equity shareholders. We would also want to know the Energy Committee, to get it from the CES National Treasury, who are the majority private equity shareholders in KPLC, so that even as we expend public resources to rescue KPLC, which we should, we must know who are the other hidden beneficiaries of this kind of process, so that we do not use government, Honorable Speaker, to rescue a company that is listed at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. And maybe with trading ongoing, Honorable Speaker, nothing stops me today from walking to the Nairobi Securities Exchange, buying KPLC shares today at about a shilling, knowing government is using public money to rescue this firm, and maybe in another 6 months, as a turnaround, I cash in. Honorable Speaker, these are very weighty issues to do with how we manage and governance issues of our public assets and public parastatals, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I really want to agree with you the CS National Treasury must take the issues of KPLC and IPPs more seriously than he's doing. And more weighty, the issues that have been raised by the Honorable Duale today, Honorable Speaker, are very weighty issues that the CS National Treasury cannot afford to take the House for granted, Honorable Speaker.
Very well, very well. I'm sure the Honorable Gikaria has heard that. Do you want to say anything, Honorable Gikaria? Well, but give an update. Give an update by Tuesday next week. Give us an update.
Okay.
A proper update.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I hear you. And again, I've heard what Honorable Ishongwa is saying. But Honorable Speaker, sometimes the Auditor General, sometimes, as he's saying, on matters of the audit. Honorable Speaker, my committee had requested for a special audit on Longalayani Susua transmission line. Honorable Speaker, I'm yet to get a report from the peak to understand the outcome of that, because, Honorable Speaker, as we are talking, we still owe some individuals purported, or rather a claim of almost another 5 billion shillings. Honorable Speaker, and we have directed that no money should be paid to that contractor or that line and until a special audit has been done by the Auditor General. Honorable Speaker, it took almost 6 or 7 months for us to get a special, almost 2 years, a year, I think, not past
but
2.
But now, you know, so, if you are ordered for a special audit, you must give, when you order for a special audit, when committees used to do what they are supposed to do, you don't give the Auditor General, you know, an open check. Special audit to be conducted within a period of either 30 days or 45 days, not 2 years, Honorable Gikaria. So that if they don't, then you report them here. The Auditor General is an officer. Is an officer of this of Parliament. They report. That office reports to Parliament. In fact, it is a technical arm of Parliament, as far as financial matters, especially to do with the expenditure of public resources, is concerned. You can ask the Honorable Wamunyinyi, he will tell you that when he used to chair that committee, that's what used to happen. Exactly. We got, don't allow people to, you don't give orders you know, which are open-ended. It must be, a special audit must be conducted within a specified period. Now, as Honorable Duale, I think also took leave, because as this was happening, I saw the member for Ikolomani, whom I think all of you shouted to be the vice chair of budget committee. I saw him stroll into the house also, almost 1 hour after the house started. The member for Ikolomani, the house starts at 2:30. Just in case you may have forgotten, Honorable Shinali. There was a request from the Honorable Duale. Get in touch with the majority whip, he will brief you, because it will take a long time for, if we begin explaining to you now. That, move to the next order. No. Next request, a general statement by the Honorable Danita Gatti.
Honorable Speaker, I wish to issue a general statement concerning the inaugural Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disability Africa Region Conference to be held on the 14th to the 18th of October 2021 in Nairobi, Kenya. Honorable Speaker, on the 21st September 2021, you communicated to the House my election as chairperson of the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Network, and I was humbled by the congratulatory messages and offers of support from my honorable colleagues. The Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Network is one of the special programs of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, CPA, and was established to facilitate activities and programs geared towards championing and increasing representation of persons with disabilities in Commonwealth parliaments. Further, the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Network seeks to develop mechanisms for mainstreaming disability considerations in all CPA activities and programs. Honorable Speaker, as chairperson of the Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Network, it is my pleasure to inform the House that the Parliament of Kenya is scheduled to host the inaugural Commonwealth Parliamentarians with Disabilities Africa Region Conference from the 14th to the 18th of October 2021 at the Nairobi Serena under the theme Mainstreaming Disability in Legislative Agenda in the 21st Century. Honorable Speaker, the main objective of the conference is to create a platform for members of Parliament with disabilities within the Africa region to discuss issues of mutual concern and to chart a path to mainstreaming disability into the activities of the regional association and beyond. The conference is expected to bring together parliamentarians with disabilities from 12 countries in the Commonwealth Africa region, including the host Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Botswana, Zambia, Lesotho, Namibia, South Africa, and Mozambique. Delegates will participate physically and virtually with key speakers from both the public and private sectors, including the CPA International, the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, the National Gender and Equality Commission, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, among other partners. Honorable Speaker, as we embark on this very important meeting, I wish to thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your unwavering support to this cause, both here in Parliament and at the regional level as the chairperson of the CPA Africa Exco. I also wish, Honorable Speaker, to take this opportunity to invite the Honorable Deputy Speaker to the conference, and particularly to host the welcome dinner for the conference participants. Honorable Deputy Speaker, the CPA fraternity values your wit and parliamentary anecdotes and would be most grateful if you could find time to be with us. Last but not least, Honorable Speaker, I would also like to thank my colleagues and the general CPA fraternity for standing with us in this endeavor as we seek to mainstream disability considerations in the legislative agenda. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I suspect the Deputy Speaker may not have had that special invitation. And now that I suspect the Deputy Speaker did not hear about the invitation, the special invitation to come and host the welcoming dinner on Thursday evening. Is that so, Honorable Danita? Your invitation is on Thursday evening?
The invitation is for Friday evening.
To the Deputy Speaker.
The Deputy Speaker is invited, Mr. Speaker, to host the dinner.
Now, the Honorable Rosa Buyu, don't distract the Deputy Speaker. He has to take note that it is on Friday evening. He's supposed to host that dinner. Now I'm sure he has heard. Next order.
Order number 8, the Children's Bill, National Assembly Bill number 38 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 53 of the Constitution to make provision for parental responsibility fostering, adoption, custody, maintenance, guardianship, care, and protection of children, to make provision for and regulate the administration of children's institutions, to establish the National Council of Children's Services, and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the County Government's Grants Bill, Senate Bill number 35 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the additional allocation of county governments for the 2021-2022 financial year, the responsibilities of the national government and county governments pursuant to such allocation and for connected purposes. Order number 10, the Basic Education Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 4 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Basic Education Act and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Mental Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 28 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Mental Health Act and for connected purposes. Order number 12, the County Licensing Uniform Procedures Bill, Senate Bill number 32 of 2020. A bill, first reading, a bill for an act of parliament to establish standards, uniform procedures for licensing by county governments and for connected purposes. Order number 13, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 31 of 2020, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Salaries and Remuneration Commission Act and for connected purposes. Order number 14, motion, further changes to committee membership.
Who's moving this motion? Honorable Bangwe, Majority Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on behalf of the Chair, Committee on Selection, I beg to move that further to the resolutions of the House of Tuesday, 5th December 2017, Wednesday, 15th July 2020, 11th February 2021, and 4th May 2021, appointing members to various committees and pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 173. This House further approves the appointment of the following members to the respective committees specified hereunder. 1, the Honorable John Munene Wambugu, MP, to move from the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. 2, the Honorable Daniel Kipkoskei Rono, MP, to be appointed to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. 3, the Honorable Kathoni Wamushomba, MP, to move from the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing to the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. 4, the Honorable Moses Malulu Injendi, MP, to move from the Committee on Regional Integration to the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. 5, the Honorable Benjamin Kadhiru Mwangi, MP, to move from the Select Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity to the Committee on Regional Integration. 6, the Honorable George Ndungu Koimburi, MP, to be appointed to the Select Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunities. 7, the Honorable John Njuguna Wanjiku, MP, to be appointed to the Select Committee on Implementation. 8, the Honorable Okiru Ali, MP, to move from the Departmental Committee on Energy to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. And then finally, 9, the Honorable Pavel Oimeke, MP, to be appointed to the Departmental Committee on Energy. Honorable Speaker, The chairperson committee on selection is not in the country, and he has sought that I step in for him, which I hereby do. And Honorable Speaker, these changes were necessitated to realign. Some of them were to be realigned because of Standing Order 177, which gave a maximum number of committee members. It's supposed to be not more than 23, and the members were already more. So we had to realign 1 or 2 members from that. And at the same time, Honorable Speaker, we realigned some members because of the requests which were made and necessitated the changes from the chairpersons, such that, Honorable Speaker, due to the situation that they were in, how they were handling and sharing the discussions in the committee, Honorable Speaker, it necessitated that. Honorable Speaker, we also looked at the issues of professionalism, Honorable Speaker. Most of the times, Honorable Speaker, we have seen in this House that, Honorable Speaker, some members really work well with the history of their background. And Honorable Speaker, we looked at the existence of Professor, the Honorable of Seme, Professor Nyikal. In the Committee of Education, Health, Honorable Speaker, he plays a key role. And Honorable Speaker, when we align the Honorable Imeke, having served in energy, and with the issues that energy has, Honorable Speaker, he is a very good professional. He understands the background of energy, and we felt, Honorable Speaker, it's important we allow him to serve in that committee to empower and enrich the history that he has. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, with that in mind, I wish to request the Honorable John Buddy, the minority leader, to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Buddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to second this motion, which is basically realigning or assigning members to other new assignments. There is no member who has been de-whipped or removed completely from a committee, as it has previously happened in certain instances. On my side, as a minority side, there are only 2 changes, where we have moved Honorable Ali from energy to education and placed Honorable Oimeke, who is, let me say, a new member in the House because he has never been assigned any committee before. And so the MP for Bonchari is going to have now a substantive committee where he's going to sit. I want to apologize to him and maybe the other members from the Jubilee side, the new members, that it took us a little long to assign them committees. This is largely because we were trying to juggle around and find the best placement for these members so that no one complained. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to second the motion.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that further to the resolutions of the House of Tuesday, 5th December 2017, Wednesday, 15th July 2020, and 11th February 2021, appointing members to various committees, and pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 173, this House further approves the appointments of the following members to the respective committees specified hereunder. 1, the Honorable John Munene Wambogo, MP, to move from the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. 2, the Honorable Daniel Kipkoskei Rono, MP, to be appointed to the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. 3, the Honorable Gathoni Wamushomba, MP, to move from the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing to the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. 4, the Honorable Moses Malulu Ijendi, MP, to move from the Committee on Regional Integration to the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. 5, the Honorable Benjamin Gadhiru Mwangi, MP, to move from the Select Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity to the Committee on Regional Integration. 6, the Honorable George Dongo Koimburi, MP, to be appointed to the Select Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity. 7, the Honorable John Jogona Wanjiko, MP, to be appointed to the Select Committee on Implementation. And 8, the Honorable Mohamed Lokiru Ali MP, to move from the Departmental Committee on Energy to the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. And 9, the Honorable Pavel Oimeke, MP, to be appointed to the Departmental Committee on Energy. Honorable Ishungu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just want to lend my voice to the changes that are being made to our departmental and select committees. And I've listened to the reasons being given by both the whip and the minority leader. And while I agree with the minority leader that nobody from the minority is being de-whipped per se, the case is not the same on the majority side. Because the reasons that the majority whip has given, if you look at the people being moved around, you can tell, Honorable Speaker, the real intent by the majority party is to de-whip the Honorable Gathoni Mushomba from being the vice chair of the Transport Committee, and that's why she's being moved from the Transport Committee, Honorable Speaker, and whereas it is within the rights of any parliamentary party to move members, Honorable Speaker. Being a member of the Members' Welfare Committee, Honorable Speaker, you know we have a role in ensuring that we protect parliamentary democracy, Honorable Speaker. And we must stand out as much as my lone voice this afternoon may not change this list. But we must speak out, Honorable Speaker, to protect parliamentary democracy. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the movements by the majority party, and I have particular concern with the movements within the majority party. When you move the Honorable John Munene Wambugu to the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, Honorable Speaker, we must ensure that our committees reflect both regional balance and also ensure there is representation across the country. That particular committee, if I am not wrong, is the vice chair is a member from where, who is just walking in, or is a member of the committee. Or the vice chair was changed to Gedi. But if you look at the representation from Kirinyaga County, for instance, and considering that the PS, National Security and the Interior, comes from Kirinyaga County, we must ask the question whether if we flood this particular committee with members from Kirinyaga County, we are not... Honorable Speaker, if you can protect me from the member from where who is just shouting without knowing what I'm talking about, to have the patience to just sit, listen, then he can respond in a very mature way. We don't deal with shouting in this house, Honorable Speaker. And I understand he's a new member of parliament, but you may advise him, I have mentioned him, he has the right to respond, not shouting from behind me. Honorable Speaker, I was saying we must ensure that our committees also reflect regional balance, and they are also seen, and not just being seen, they must be able to offer meaningful and actual oversight of our government, ministries and departments. Honorable Speaker, allow me also to go to the minority in a small way. The member for, I don't know his member for, the Honorable Pavel Oimeke is being appointed to the Committee for Energy, Honorable Speaker. We had a session yesterday, and you remember the matter was raised by the leader of minority. And in the arguments that were advanced by many members from the minority was that the member for Saku could not bring or table a petition in this house, then seek to amend that petition. And the issue of conflict of interest, Honorable Speaker, was very well articulated in this house, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we must now throw it back to the leader of minority and the minority party. When the Honorable Pavel Oimeke, who before his election as a member of parliament served in the Energy Regulatory Commission or some body like that within the energy sector, the commission, the commission that is actually in charge of regulating the pricing structure of even our petroleum products, Honorable Speaker, and within the energy sector, and having an active case in court, Honorable Speaker, which I do not want to dwell on it and the issues that are there. But you must ask yourself the question, would the Honorable Pavel Oimeke, having served within the energy sector, be the most perfect person to oversight the same sector? Will there not be a conflict of interest also in having the Honorable Pavel Oimeke sit within the Energy Committee, Honorable Speaker? And I'm just throwing this, Honorable Speaker, so that we jog our minds.
There's a point of order from the Honorable John Bandi.
That one is allowed, Honorable Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I know Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah is assuming his new role of practicing opposition to government, but he should do it within our standing orders and with the respect to other members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, there is no conflict of interest as far as I'm concerned regarding the Honorable Oimeke coming into the Energy Committee, because he is no longer working in the energy sector. He is now a member of parliament. All of us have worked in some places before. And by the way, the committee, the departmental committee oversees the continuous activities of the ministry, not the audited accounts, which is the work of Public Investment and Public Accounts Committee. So if probably it was in one of the watchdog committees, you'd say he may land on some information touching on his work those days. But he's going to now oversight the committee, I mean the ministry and those parastatals within the ministry going forward, Mr. Speaker. The programs, the operations, the activities. I don't see any conflict of interest. And Mr. Speaker, I think Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah is out of order to start discussing a member in this matter. Has no relationship with that member being in the committee. Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah has worked elsewhere before. I have worked in the University of Nairobi. Who says I cannot sit in the Education Committee? Who said I cannot sit in Public Investment? As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, I sat in Public Investment Committee, and the University of Nairobi appeared before my committee in the 10th Parliament, Mr. Speaker. But I had served in that university for 7 years in the Finance Department. So, Mr. Speaker, let us respect other members. The matters that are in court will be canvassed in court. In fact, if Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah had a problem with a member of parliament who has a case in court being in this house, he knows what he should have done. And we have other examples, Mr. Speaker, as I sit, of Honorable Waluke, who sits in Public Accounts Committee, and he has a matter active in court, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, let us not be selective in dealing with other members and trying to scandalize them. Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah is out of order. Let him discuss the list and tell us where he feels. Like the case he had highlighted of Wamushomba could make sense, and this House could listen to you. But now when you digress and start bringing other extraneous matters, Mr. Speaker, I think that is not fair.
Majority Whip also seems to have to weigh in.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe with this permission, Honorable Speaker, I just want to inform Honorable Ichung'wah that he indeed referred to Honorable Raso about yesterday's issue. And Honorable Raso is a colonel. He is a long-serving military officer with a background of military. And Honorable Speaker, I want to report to this House today that he's one of the best members of the Committee on Defense. So having served in the military and serving in defense, and then he is now going against Honorable Oimeke, who has been in energy and now joining the energy, I believe it's double speak, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Member from where you appear to be agitated.
Yes, I am, Honorable Speaker, because I think my brother Honorable Ichung'wah has a bad habit of always referring to us as first-timers in this House. Honorable Speaker, he has an assumption that some of us don't have anything we can say in this House. And Honorable Speaker, Honorable Ichung'wah wrongly referred to me as the Vice Chair of Administration and National Security. He went ahead and said that we have flooded the security sector in this country, Honorable Speaker. I want to state it clearly that in this House, the proposed name is only one, and there is no other member from Kirinyaga who is in the Security Committee, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, if Honorable Ichung'wah has a problem with Kirinyaga as a county, let us square it somewhere else and not in this House, Honorable Speaker. He knows very well that he is coming from a county where we have representation in various committees. He knows very well when he was a chairman, there were many chairmen from Kiambu. Nobody complained. But now that we are proposing, or it's being proposed as more change for Kirinyaga, with his problems in Kirinyaga, and we shall square that one outside, somewhere else. Let him not bring it here. And further, let him not continue referring to us as first-timers. We are here for 4 years. We have been doing our work, and some of us are doing it even much better than he is doing, or he was doing when he was the chair. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Wambogo was mentioned. Let me give him a chance also to say something before we proceed.
You've given me. Thank you. Mr. Speaker,
thank
you've given me.
No.
It is me.
The,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to also weigh my voice in. First of all, I take out of exception with the Honorable Ishongwa saying that we are cooperating the Committee on Administration and National Security. In fact, the previous this was at the service of the people of Kirinyaga, because I was in the committee of Justice Legal, and also my neighbor, Geshimu, was in the same committee. So we had two members from the same county in the same committee. And he never complained then. I don't know why it is an issue now when I'm taken to Committee on National Security and Administration and National Security, where my brother was. And I think he only wanted to mention the name of the PS Kebisho. The fact that Kebisho comes from Kenya County, Kebisho never made me or never participated on, with me becoming a member of Parliament. I'm here by my own right. And I'm entitled, and I think I have ability to serve in any committee of this Parliament. If an Obishungwa is obsessed with the Kebisho and Kirinyaga, he may say it. Thank you.
now, can we now go to debating the motion? Honorable Ishongwa, you have only 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And while I may not have the time to respond to some of these other issues, but it's good to advise the Honorable Member from where I have tremendous respect for all members of Parliament, including first-timers. But that respect must be two-way. When somebody is on his feet, you don't shout. You behave in a mature manner, the way the Honorable Vice Chair of the Security Committee has advised, that indeed the member from where was moved from that committee into another one. But the question that I was raising, Honorable Speaker, is the perception we create as a House where there is no regional balance, where we use the movement within the committees to actually do whip, and that's why I mentioned the majority party. And you can see the majority party is not even concerned to respond to that. They are responding to the issue of Oimeke. The Honorable Oimeke, I may tell John Buddy, I said indeed he has a right to serve in that committee. But we must ask ourselves the moral question that for him, who has even a case relating to that energy sector, Honorable Speaker, and having served immediately before his nomination, his election as a member of Parliament, would he offer meaningful oversight over the same parastatal where he was working within the energy sector? But Honorable Speaker, I think for me, the most important thing is the misuse by the majority party of the movements within the committees to de-whip members based on their political affiliations. And Honorable Speaker, that is why you see even the questions that have been raised today, the chair budget, the vice chair were nowhere to be seen, Honorable Speaker, because we are very busy out there with other issues. Honorable Speaker, even as I contribute to this debate, Honorable Speaker, you can see the chair budget now has walked in because he has finished his business at Serena, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me finish by saying I, as a lone voice, for the sake of our parliamentary democracy, Honorable Speaker, I oppose this risk.
Member Bonyando, let's remember, honourable members, if you want to reject, you can only reject the entire list. Those are rules, huh? So, yeah. Yes. So, Honorable Okello.
I thank you. I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think longevity in this House creates a semblance of order. I really relish Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, Honorable Adan Keinan, Honorable from Taita Taveta, the women rep. There are people who have been in this House, but the way they treat us as newcomers has a lot of respect. Not the disdain that my friend Honorable Ichungwa continues to exhibit on the new members. However, Honorable Speaker, I remember you did give a ruling here last year when we brought our friend David Ochieng on the chopping board, and we were going for his blood because we thought he was not aligned to our persuasion. But, Honorable Speaker, in your ruling you did say that every individual in this House, regardless of their political persuasion, has a right to be in a committee. And that really deflated us. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, I have believed since day one that committees in this House are on a linear position. There is no committee that is more superior than the other. And therefore, when we make noises about the reorientation of political parties to their members from one committee to another, I don't think there is any need for us to be on top of our voices. Otherwise, we are going to belittle certain committees to the detriment of their performance, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I believe that we are fine, we are equal, and all committees serve the interest of the Kenyan people. Honorable Speaker, the political parties, for us who are aligned to parties, we serve in these committees at the pleasure of those political parties. And they have the latitude to change members as and when they wish to do so. Unless somebody doesn't want to, go by the dictates of political parties, then you can come in this House as an independent. And therefore, you can be in a committee to stay forever. Finally, Honorable Speaker, as I support this motion, it will be incumbent upon all of us to have absolute respect for one another. We do not make statements that have the potential to create division. We want to move. We have less than a year in this House. New members will come in. Of course, I will be joining them. But it is important that when we make pronouncements from within this House, that we must respect each and every person without mentioning names, Honorable Speaker, in a manner that belittles them. I mean, this is a national House, and we have the media capturing our transactions live here. And when a member rises to belittle the other, then you can only imagine what happens out there, Honorable Speaker, in the eyes of our electorate, who hold us so dearly and so high up, Honorable Speaker. And for this opportunity, I thank you.
Nominee 001.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And first of all, I'm a member of the Committee on Selection, and we did meet, and all the changes that were done was well canvassed. So, Honorable Speaker, you know, some are pretending to know more English than some of us. Honorable Speaker, so I must also confirm that I'm the prefect of all the new timers, the monos. And being the prefect, we are the majority. We are actually 70%. So in any case, Honorable Ishungwa should talk to us because we are the majority in this House, and being their prefect, I don't want anybody to demean any of us because we are here legally, and some of us have been more active than those who have stayed here for long. I don't know if it is because of getting tired. Honorable Speaker, but Honorable Ishungwa did raise a very pertinent issue about sometimes this perception that is created outside there. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to the issue of Honorable Wamshomba, it is in public domain that he just visited Karen and supported the Deputy President of this Republic, and she being moved from where she was a Vice Chair is in itself being the whip. But we have no problem because, Honorable Speaker, the party have all the powers to remove a member, to move from this committee to another committee. Honorable Speaker, you remember I still hold the world record of having been the shortest ever serving member of parliament to a select committee, having served in national cohesion and equal opportunities for only 2 months and 13 days. Honorable Speaker, and I did not complain because that is a world record, that is held by no other person apart from nominee 001. So I'm proud of my records, Honorable Speaker. So even Honorable Wamshomba should be proud, because at the end of the day, since the power and our standing orders give the parties all the powers, Honorable Speaker. When we had a meeting of the Committee on Selection, Honorable Speaker, this proposal of these movements were proposed, and I supported, despite the fact that I'm from the Hasla movement, and I saw it as a de-whipping of Honorable Omshomba. But we say, yes, it is their time. They have their time. We will have ours. Our time is coming also. So we will enjoy the committee that will be given. We will also enjoy the de-whipping. We have no problem with it, because it is, there are people who have the luxury of that time. We will also have our own time when it comes, and we will de-whip them. Honorable Mbadi is a very good friend of mine, and very soon, probably, I will also consider them, or consider him as a good friend when we form the next government. I will not leave him outside the government, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Speaker, so we do support, and I urge all the members to support this proposed movement from one committee to another one. Let us support even the de-whipping. Let us support the promotion. We support all of them so that we can move forward, because election is just 10 months from now, in any case, so there is no problem. It's in 9 months there. The Mzee of the House is reminding me that it is 9 months. You know, I did not want to sound a bit, I want to leave Parliament because I want also to stay a bit longer. But anyway, we do support. Honorable Mbadi, your proposed movement are well. There is nobody you have de-whipped. There was nobody you have promoted. You are very fair in whatever you are doing as the minority leader. We do respect you. And I hope in the next Parliament, you will be promoted to a CS. No, to a majority leader. I will be the majority leader, my friend. So you will be promoted to a CS. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I do support Honorable Speaker, and thank you very much for being here for us, because I know every changes come through you. Even though you are very busy in your presidential campaign, you have always made sure that you attend to our needs. I remember when I was being de-whipped, I came to you and told you, but it's okay. And you are really very considerate on me, despite the fact that we are very busy outside there campaigning. And most of these members, especially the ones that are being referred as the new members, look at Honorable Kabinga. Is your real supporter, including some of us. You have 70% of this house because the new members support you in your presidential bite. So thank you very much. Even the old one, even the Mzee house is supporting you. So thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and our future President.
Honorable Amalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a straightforward motion, and I'm here to support the motion, Mr. Speaker. And more importantly, when it comes to placing people in committees, it will add a lot of value, the way Honorable Wangwe said, that if the job qualification or the description matches your qualification. For instance, if somebody is going to the energy sector and he has more info as far as matters of energy are concerned, he'll add a lot of value in that particular committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is important also to note that as you put people in committees, it is important that there must be aspects of equity. Equity in the sense that the political parties, we raised this matter last time, Mr. Speaker, that as people have one committee, we have people who have 5 committees, Mr. Speaker, and they know themselves. Others have 4 committees. To me, I find it is greedy, because as we go towards elections, where will you get time to add value in that committee? Ask yourself, however greedy you are, if you have 4 committees, do you really add value to that committee? That is the question we'll be asking. And from our own conscience, Mr. Speaker, that is very, very, very important. But we do support that people who have certain qualifications, let them be put in a committee that will add more value. But at times there's aspect of interest, unless otherwise, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, this is a straightforward motion. I don't see why we should dwell so much on it. And looking at the situation the way it is, some of us who have been here, towards elections, even getting a quorum in those particular committees is going to be difficult, Mr. Speaker. So whoever has been de-whipped or whatever, I was de-whipped from being a whip. And I became even stronger, Mr. Speaker. I get an opportunity to contribute and even to legislate. And on the aspects, Mr. Speaker, of when we are here in Parliament, we are all equal, Mr. Speaker. I've seen first-timers who have come out very well. In terms of legislative proposals, they've done very well, Mr. Speaker. We've had people here who have been here even for 4 terms. You don't even know whether they are doing 4th term or they are first-timers, Mr. Speaker. So respect should be across the board, irrespective of the number of terms that you've been here. And the value contribution should be demonstrated from the legislative legislation, Mr. Speaker. I thank you and I support.
Is there, what? Can we, do we really need to debate this? No. Well, it's the desire of the House that I put the question. Members, I put the question that further to the resolutions of the House of Tuesday, 5th December 2017, Wednesday, 15th July 2020, and 11th February 2021, appointing members to various committees and pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 173, this House further approves the appointment of the following members to the respective committees as specified on the order paper. Will as many as that of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 15, motion. Session of paper number 1 of 2021 on the national water policy.
Honorable Kareke Buki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this House, under the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on sessional paper number 2 of 2021, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, and further approve the sessional paper number 1 of 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Water Policy 2021 was tabled in the House on 8th of June 2021, and the Speaker committed the policy to the Departmental Committee of Environment and Natural Resource for review and report to the House pursuant to provision of Standing Order 127.1. Mr. Speaker, the paper aims at building on the achievement of the water sector reforms over the years and moving it to the next level of development in order to contribute to the national goals and the realization of the Sustainable Development Goal. Mr. Speaker, the National Water Policy builds on the successes, challenges, and lessons learned from the previous policy framework, including sessional paper of 1999, sessional paper number 10 of 2012, and the provisions of the Kenya Vision 2030 on the water conservation and management. Mr. Speaker, water plays a significant role in the national development of our country with respect to socio-economic and development spheres. It is a socio and economic good which is critical for the sustainable development of the country. Mr. Speaker, in line to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, water is constitutionally linked to human rights, since the management of water resources is integrated with the human rights to clean drinking water and to reasonable standards of sanitation. There is apparent need by the government to review the water sector policies to align them to the achievement of the fundamental human rights issued in accordance with the Constitution provision under the Bill of Rights. Mr. Speaker, consequently, the sessional paper on National Water Policy 2021 formed the basis upon which the county governments will prepare their policies and strategies to effectively and efficiently discharge their respective mandate on water and service delivery. Mr. Speaker, the development of Water Policy 2021 is anchored on the implementation of the various policies, regulatory and legislative framework that guide the water sector toward enhancing its role in social and economic development of the country. These policies, regulations, and legislative framework include the following, Mr. Speaker. 1, the national paper, the sessional paper number 1 of 1965 on Africa socialism and its application to planning in Kenya, which identified 3 development priorities for the country, including ending poverty, ignorance, and disease. The policy underpinned the importance of water through conservation and protection of watersheds from destruction. Number 2, Mr. Speaker, sessional paper number 1 of 1999 on national policy on water resource management and development formulated to promote the sustainable development and management of the water sector through institutional arrangement and financing. And 3, Mr. Speaker, the Water Act 202. This act focused on the decentralization of water services and the separating water policy formulation from the management of water resources and provision of water and sanitation services. And 4, Mr. Speaker, further to the enactment of the Constitution 2010, representing a milestone in the water sector reforms through the introduction of the various human rights that are integrated to the water sector, including the right to clean and healthy environment, also the right to reasonable standards of sanitation, and Article 1 and Article 42 and 43, respectively, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, formulation of water policy is a panacea to the threats and challenges facing the sector, as it provides contemporary and effective and efficient water resource and delivery and sanitation. The policy framework aims to accelerate the engineering of the water sector by providing clarity on mandate and consolidate the laws of the various sector actors, including the national and the county government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, development of the water policy is informed by new development in the sector, as well as the need to align the sector registration to the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and other policies, including the Vision 2030 review of the Water Act 202. Mr. Speaker, the committee undertook various public participation in keeping with the Constitution. The committee conducted public participation pursuant to Article 118(1)(b) of the Constitution and Standing Order 127(3) and received written memoranda and oral submission from the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the submission by the Ministry acknowledges the need for a structured framework for development supporting the legislation and regulatory framework for the water sector to maximize resource use and enhance the value addition in the implementation of the water reticulation and management measures. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the committee is seized of the proposals in the National Water Policy 2021 and has made its recommendation accordingly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we also sought what does this policy seek to solve, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, this national policy seek the water policy purposes to mitigate on the challenges and threats facing the water sector by ensuring the coordination and accelerated partnership mainstreamed in the management and provision of water resources, and to enhance protection of watersheds and other catchment areas in the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the policy document focuses on critical component of the water resource management and exploration framework that inspires confidence and capture the aspiration of Kenyan people and the responsibility of everyone in protecting the water catchment areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the policy seeks to guide the achievement of sustainable management, development and use of water resources in Kenya. It will provide a framework for sustainable management and financing of water resources, water harvesting and storage, and for equitable, efficient, and universal access to water supply and reasonable standards of sanitation for domestic economic use, as well as the ecosystem's sustenance. Mr. Speaker, further, the policy seeks to align the water sector to the Constitution of Kenya, especially with respect to the establishment of mechanisms to guide intergovernmental and institutional coordination for better delivery of respective functions. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, The policy sets to put in place a strengthened implementation framework for effective and efficient delivery, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting on the progress of implementation of the policy, taking into account the fact that water function is shared between the national government and the county government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the policy proposes to align management and administration of water sector to the Constitution and addresses inherent water sector challenges, which include the following, Mr. Speaker. 1, regulation and management of the water sector. 2, low access to improved water and sanitation services. 3, weaknesses in water resource management. And 4, Mr. Speaker, limitation in water harvesting and storage against the sector target and expectations. Mr. Speaker, the committee was also seized with the issues to do with legal and institutional framework. Mr. Speaker, this policy builds on the current legislative framework governing the promotion of the water resource management and use in Kenya. In the foregoing, it is important, Mr. Speaker, to note that there have been extensive legislative reforms in the water sector geared toward greater efficiency and effectiveness in the management and use of water resources in the country. Mr. Speaker, aware that county governments have the mandate to undertake provision of water and sanitation services and to implement specific national government policies on natural resources and environmental conservation, including soil and water conservation. The policy, Mr. Speaker, will provide a structured engagement with service providers. Mr. Speaker, the county government, under the provision of Chapter 11, Constitution and the County Government Act 2012, allows the function assignment to the county government, whereas the fourth schedule, Part 2, serves to prevent the functions and enhance the resourcing to implement the function thereof. Mr. Speaker, the committee made the following observations. In consideration of the policy, the committee made the following key observations that are critical in the approval of the policy. That, Mr. Speaker, the policy is focused on improving management and water resource use and enhances generational transfer of benefits through local community participation, private sector involvement. 2, Mr. Speaker, it provides for the mechanism to enhance water conflict while harnessing the benefit accruing from the water resource collectively. And 3, Mr. Speaker, it appreciates the emerging issues of climate change, innovation, and technological advancement. These, in effect, promote the development of adaptability measures to preserve water resource, being social and economic good. 4, Mr. Speaker, it seeks to align the legislative framework on water resource management and use to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, based on 2030, international conventions on water and sustainable development goals, SDGs, Mr. Speaker. 5, Mr. Speaker, it provides partnership and collaborations while adhering to international obligations on water resources as well as addressing disparities in water supply, management of sector conflict, and disaster risk reduction. 6, Mr. Speaker, it endeavors to create pool of resources to support water conservation and management and use through structured funding with logical strategy on monitoring, review, and reporting on progress. Investments and financing remain critical in the success of the progressive achievement of the human right to water and reasonable standard of sanitation as provided for under Article 42 and 43 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, having done public participation and made the observation which I've articulated, Mr. Speaker, the committee made the following recommendations. Mr. Speaker, the committee recommended that the House approve the session paper number 1 of 2021 on the national policy thereof without amendment, the enactment of which will engineer investment and financing requirements of the water sector while enhancing water resource management in the country and guarantee minimum levels of sanitation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Following the adoption of this policy by this Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, all proposed legislation and regulations on water sector related matters should be guided by the provision of the National Water Policy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank your office, the office of the CRAC, the committee members of the Environment and Natural Resources, and the entire membership of this House for the support which they give us when we're interrogating this particular matter. And having said that, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request the Honorable Sophia Abdinul, the committee vice chairman, to second this motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sophia.
Thank you so much, Chair. I beg to second the motion. Mr. Speaker, the National Water Policy 2021 was tabled in the House on 8th June 2021. Mr. Speaker, this policy document was committed to the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, Mr. Speaker, to review and report to the House pursuant to the provision on the Standing Order 127, Subclause 1. Mr. Speaker, the paper aims at building on the achievement of the water sector reforms over the years and moving it to the next level of development in order to contribute to the national goals and realization of sustainable development sustainable development goals, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the committee was looking at this, we looked at all the challenges that the sector have gone through, including the current challenges that the sector is facing in the northern region as we are speaking, Mr. Speaker. This will be a very important policy document that will address those current challenges that are facing any part of this country, Mr. Speaker, including what is being faced in my own constituency, Ijara, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the National Water Policy builds on the successes, as I said earlier on, and the challenges and lesson learned from previous frameworks that exist, Mr. Speaker, in all our documents, including Kenya Vision 2030, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, water plays a very significant and crucial role in the national development of our country in respect to social, economical, environmental aspects, Mr. Speaker. It is a social and economical good crucial for sustainable development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in line with our Constitution of 2010, water is a human right. And being a human right, then we need to link water to human aspect, to human rights. And linking human right to water aspect, then we will align this policy document into the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, Article 42 and specifically Article 43, that critical talks on human rights issues pertaining to water, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, human right is an integral rights for human rights for clean drinking water and reasonable standard of sustainability, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this sessional paper, this national water policy document forms basis of the county government will prepare its policies and strategies, Mr. Speaker, to discharge their respective mandate within the water services, Mr. Speaker. Development of Water Policies 2030, Mr. Speaker, is an important implementation of various policies, regulations, and legislation frameworks that will guide the water sector towards enhancing the role in social and economical development of the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this will allow partnership of the policy document will allow partnership between the key stakeholders in trying to advance delivery of water, Mr. Speaker. This will be a tool, Mr. Speaker, for monitoring, evaluation, and to check on the deliveries targets that we give ourselves as a country, Mr. Speaker. This policy document will be able to achieve all that in order to put proper management of our water sector, which today has a lot of challenge, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the water policy is to mitigate the threats that we feel today. There are a lot of threats that I've told a while ago, that the threats that we are feeling today in northern Kenya, if we had this policy paper that clearly...
Honorable Sophia Nur, 1 minute to conclude. Seconding.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me 1 more minute to conclude. And the national water policy, Mr. Speaker, has it is the national water purposely is to address the challenges and the threats that we are feeling today as a country. As a country, when a whole region, 3/4 of the landmark today is feeling threatened and is suffering because of the challenges under the water sector. Mr. Speaker, with this partnership that we are bringing everybody on board, a lot of collaboration, resources being put in one pool. This will address the challenges, Mr. Speaker, we are facing today. And I second, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much for giving me the 1 minute to conclude. Thank you so much. I second.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on sessional paper number 1 of 2021 on the National Water Policy, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, and further approves sessional paper number 1 of 2021. Member for Kisumu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I'd like to say that I support the report from the committee, of which I'm a member. And Mr. Speaker, indeed, water is life. And a lot of the developments of our country depends on water, availability of water. Mr. Speaker, in the 2010 Constitution, every Kenyan citizen has a right to clean water. Mr. Speaker, and this is what the policy seeks to do. The policy seeks to ensure that every citizen, no matter where they are, can have access to that clean water. Mr. Speaker, the policy is aware and cognizant of the fact that Kenya is a water-scarce country. And because of scarcity of water, a lot of conflicts arise in various parts of the country. And what this policy does is the policy enhances different mechanisms in which water can actually be conserved and in which water can be shared equally. Mr. Speaker, we know that especially in parts where there is experience of droughts, like in Northeastern, we've had numerous conflicts of neighbors who have otherwise lived well and lived in peace. But because of scarcity of water, they've had to fight and, Mr. Speaker, affect the peace of the country. Mr. Speaker, what this policy does is the policy also tries to encourage or to enhance the way that different water bodies can work together in order to ensure that water supply and water delivery to the people of Kenya is enhanced. Mr. Speaker, we know that water is devolved, but we also know that the national government does have a role to play in ensuring that its citizens have water. So what the policy also does is it comes up with different ways in which the national government and the county government can work together to ensure that the service delivery of water to the people is equitable and is efficient. Mr. Speaker, I therefore support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for North Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion. which is the Senate paper number 1 of 2021 on national water policy. Mr. Speaker, water plays a significant role in the development of any nation. Mr. Speaker, water is a social and economic good, which is critical for a country to realize its development agenda. Mr. Speaker, this national paper number 1 of 2021 on water policy will enable both levels of government, that's national and county government, to prepare their policies and strategies to effectively and efficiently deliver on their respective mandate as far as water service delivery is concerned. Mr. Speaker, our Constitution guarantees every Kenyan a right to clean water, healthy environment, and a reasonable standard of sanitation. And this policy will guide this nation in realizing this fundamental constitutional mandate. Mr. Speaker, the national water policy aims to accelerate the re-engineering of the water sector by providing clarity and mandate and consolidate the roles of various water sector actors so that they are able to collectively deliver on their mandate, spearheaded by both levels of government. Mr. Speaker, the policy also does provide framework, in particular, to enable the nation to realize sustainable management and the financing of water resources. It also provides a framework for water harvesting and storage. And lastly, it provides a good framework for equitable, efficient, and universal access to water quality for all Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the session paper seeks to address various challenges that is faced by the water sector in our country. Mr. Speaker, among these challenges is the inherent weaknesses in water resource management. The other challenge, Mr. Speaker, is the limitation to water harvesting and storage. And, Mr. Speaker, also the low access to improve water and sanitation services for most Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the policy provides mechanisms to manage water conflicts while harnessing the benefits accruing from water resources collectively for all Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, the session paper appreciates the emerging issues in the water sector, such as climate change, innovations, and technological advancement in this particular sector. Mr. Speaker, as I wind up, the session paper was adopted by Parliament. Both the National Assembly and the Senate will provide a sound policy framework for the development of the water sector in this country for decades to come. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Should we have Honorable Odhiambo Akoth?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and apologies that I was still consulting with my uncle, Honorable Kaluma. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support this policy paper, and in supporting Mr. Speaker, I want to say it's in line with the Constitution of Kenya, especially on socio-economic rights. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that water is life, and water is important, especially for women. And Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the mover that even in moving, he mentioned certain important principles. However, Mr. Speaker, I was concerned that he has not primed the issue of equality and equity in the provision of water. Mr. Speaker, sometimes we presume in areas that we come from, like Suba North, that we have water. Yet, Mr. Speaker, we have people who have to go distances to reach a water source. We have many, many people who travel kilometers to get to the lake. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I'd want to see in terms of this policy is an issue, or in terms of when we are actually changing the law to conform with the policy, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of equity in provision of water. Mr. Speaker, another issue that is of concern to me, which I'm glad that the mover mentioned, is the impact of climate change and our responsiveness as a nation in dealing with the impact of climate change. Mr. Speaker, water can be both a good resource and a bad resource. Mr. Speaker, because of climate change, in my area, we are now facing another crisis, which is flooding or overflooding. And Mr. Speaker, the water has become unstable. The wildlife is actually getting agitated. And now you find hippopotamus walking even in daylight in people's homes, destroying crops and all that, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we must also address are emerging issues with climate change that is increasing human-wildlife conflict, that is causing displacements. I think we also saw even in Baringo that there were schools that were submerged in water because of this, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, even in terms of how we manage our water resources, we must ensure that we find a way of balancing the places that have too much and the places that don't have. Even yesterday, we were discussing here areas in northern Kenya where people are dying of drought, they can't get water. Yet in my place, just a few days ago, we had people drowning because of the issue of water. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that is one of the issues that, for me, would be a very grave concern. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I'm glad that the honorable member has spoken about is the issue of public participation, even in terms of access to resources. And Mr. Speaker, in terms of that, I just want to encourage also mainstreaming gender in this issue, because actually the people who are impacted more with the resources, water resources, is actually women. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I do support. Thank you.
Honorable Order, member for Isiolo North.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I also support adoption of this sessional paper on national water policy. Mr. Speaker, as a country, we are water scarce. And Mr. Speaker, we have a situation where at times we have torrential rains with floods causing a lot of damage, and yet other times, like for example, the drought emergency we are going through, we find ourselves as a country in situations where almost 80 or more than 80% of population of Kenya are water insecure. This policy, Mr. Speaker, is trying to address challenges of providing water as a basic right to citizens of this country. It also addresses need to provide reasonable access to sewerage and non-sewer sanitation in rural areas. Mr. Speaker, this policy paper actually aligns provision of water and water resources and development of the same with the provisions of our Constitution of Kenya 2010, and also it enables the relevant ministry and agencies to implement the provisions of Water Act 202. Mr. Speaker, we realize that as a country, this policy is going to help us to develop water sector, and as other members who have contributed to this policy paper have indicated, water is life. Actually, water is also an enabler to all development in all other sectors. If you look at, for example, the Big Four agenda, the food security cannot be attained without water. We need water for irrigation. We need healthy population or workforce to be able to cultivate their land and also grow crops and provide food, and so on and so forth. So, Mr. Speaker, looking at this sessional paper, it also provides a very clear implementation matrix in terms of how the government intends to achieve provision of clean and potable water to the population, in terms of how it can provide access to reasonable sanitation or non-sewer sanitation, and so on and so forth. This particular sector, Mr. Speaker, has suffered from under-resourcing. Unfortunately, if that trend continues, with climate change, which is actually worsening the water situation in this country, we are likely to find ourselves in very precarious situation as a country. And this policy paper is going to help us to actually resource this particular sector adequately, so that provision of water as a basic right is going to be attained. Mr. Speaker, the asal of this country is very water scarce. And we have a lot of inequality and inequity in terms of sharing of resources which are allocated to water sector. This policy paper is going to address the challenges of inequity. There are places in this country where water is readily available. There are places in this country where almost over 90% of population have access to piped water. And yet, 80% of this country, people have no access even to non-potable water or unclean water, for that matter. We hope that if this policy is going to be implemented fully, these challenges are going to be addressed. The challenges of underfunding infrastructure for harvesting water, storage facilities for harvesting storm water and surface runoff is also going to be achieved. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support adoption of this report, and thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute to this policy paper, number 1 of 2010 on national water policy.
Honorable Borono.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to weigh on this water policy, which was long overdue. At one time, we talked about the water issue when we were handling irrigation, but I'm glad the committee has come up with a policy. As my colleague has rightfully said, water is life, and there is no doubt about it. This House, I'm glad we are now going the right direction, taking the issue of water seriously. It is very saddening that we are still talking about water 60 years after independence. In some countries, it's not an issue. We had the chance to visit the United States the other day. Water is flowing everywhere. And the question is, they focused on that matter, and they took it seriously. We have rightfully heard that if we have to achieve the food security issue, we cannot operate without water. Our land mass is so big, but a good portion will require irrigation to handle the issue of farming, because our communities are farming communities. 70–80% of our community as Kenya is farming community. And without water, we will never move an inch. So I'm glad we need to take this matter seriously, Honorable Speaker. This water policy, we must see to it that it is implemented. I only, of course, I pray if this government does not implement, I can promise this House that the UDA government will certainly implement this water policy, because we will not play around the issue of water policy in our next government, Honorable Speaker. I'm glad this policy also has touched on water harvesting. It's a very key element in this policy, very key. We want every corner of this country to have water. I don't even know why we have never even come here with a motion and say, let there be a borehole in every sub-location, in every village. Why should we be having our brothers in Northeastern, in Turkana, crying over water for their animals, day in, day out? And yet we can sort it out here. We have the brains, we have the resources. It's only that our priorities are upside down, Honorable Speaker. The government of now and of tomorrow needs to take this water issue seriously at all times. As I conclude, Honorable Speaker, the issue of equity in delivering this water to all the entire country is a key issue, and the water policy has equally touched on it. And in fact, I think it's on that chapter which is very important, because let there be equity. Let there be, you don't segregate another area or another country. Let water be distributed. And lastly, there should be no politicizing issues touching on water, and particularly dams. You can realize that our Kimorer and Aror dams were politicized and actually dehumanized in such a bad way that we lost a whole dam that would have irrigated 4,000 or 5,000 acres of land. And this, it would have sorted out this issue we are talking about, food security. So I support this policy, and I commend the committee and the chairman who has enumerated all the issues being touched in the policy, water policy. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Let's go the far end there, Honorable Wetangula Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Also to speak on this session of paper number 1 of 2021 on national water policy. Mr. Speaker, water is life. And if we don't take care of our water catchment towers, Mr. Speaker, very soon this country is going to run into trouble, because most of our catchment towers have been destroyed by the human degradation, Mr. Speaker. People have wantonly, Mr. Speaker, destroyed the forests and the places where this important resource, Mr. Speaker, is supposed to be preserved. Not long ago, Mr. Speaker, we had our rivers which were bursting with a lot of water, clean water. You could just drink that water without any treatment or anything. You could just go there and sit and drink. But today, Mr. Speaker, this has been completely destroyed. Some have dried up. Some places, Mr. Speaker, for example, if you look at the Mara and you go over the Mau area, Mr. Speaker, you don't see anything, any hope. Unless we do some great intervention, we are going to face a lot of a problem, Mr. Speaker. So this session of paper, Mr. Speaker, addresses the issues of life as a human rights, Mr. Speaker, because we are, if we don't do it, because when you go to some countries, Mr. Speaker, you find countries that don't have even water, but they have clean water, Mr. Speaker. The water in the taps runs without any problem. We don't have any issues about addressing water. Countries like Israel, which are deserts, countries like Egypt, Mr. Speaker, that depends on the Nile, and the Nile which comes from East Africa. Mr. Speaker, they have better use of water than we do. If you look at Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, we have areas where we're getting water from, Mr. Speaker, but most of this water, Mr. Speaker, go to wastage, and a lot of, we find that people don't have access to clean water many years after our independence. So this, and also this water is also a devolved function, Mr. Speaker. It should be dealt with, Mr. Speaker, at the counties should also come up with policies on water usage, Mr. Speaker, so that all the citizens of this country should have access to clean water, Mr. Speaker. So I support this policy, Mr. Speaker, because it's long overdue, and we should all support that the policy that the minister is trying to put in place will make sure that our water preservation is enhanced, and also people have access to clean water, Mr. Speaker. And also our environment will also thrive when we have adequate water supply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance.
Honorable Bunyasi John.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to contribute to very important discussion, this sessional paper on water policy. Indeed, as we say ordinarily, water is life, but water is also the environment. And since environment, issues of climate management, and all of these are intertwined in the kind of water policy we have. I would like to pick up that aspect. I appreciate fully the problems of scarcity of water in a large part of this country on a perennial basis, and the seasonal shortages we get in almost the rest of the country, except with very few exceptions. But there is also the issue of excess water on a seasonal basis, where you just have too much, it destabilizes. We know what happened to West Pokot a year and a half ago, or 2 years now. What happens in Budalangi, in Busia, almost every season, sometimes twice a year, where you need to manage excess water so that water is not a source of destruction, but truly a source of livelihood. To do that, it's going to require that we have, under the national government guidance, that we have first very long-term perspective planning, so that we can create dams in ways that these dams are not just to store the water, but they're check dams as well, so that the lower areas don't get more than they need. You can regulate that, and when you do, perhaps you can produce power. You expand the areas for fisheries. You provide areas for holidaying. What do you use that sort of facilities for sport and many other things. Of course, they'll have challenges of disease and so on, but this can be managed if they're well looked after. But it's extremely important, and we do that, we'll improve the supply. We will save in areas where water is scarce, and where it's excess, we save it and use it at the times of shortage. I think it is almost a crime that we should let our water run down to Lake Victoria, for example, and into the ocean, and we have drought behind. We have loss of life and livestock, and we should review our commitments, particularly in the western part of this country, where most of that water ends up Lake Victoria, flows down to Egypt, based on treaties that were entered into 100 years ago, when the treaties were largely colonial treaties. We even went through a phase in which most of our water advisors in East Africa came from Egypt. In a sense, they had sent people upstream to be sure that we don't do anything that, in their view, would compromise their supply. But actually, we have first to protect our citizens. We can do so within the treaties, or we can begin to push the boundary on the treaties for renegotiation. But the most important thing, as a country and within our constitutional rights, must be to provide for the country. I think it's a shame that we are at a time when parts of this country, people are dying because of floods, and yet in others, people are dying because of drought, or livestock is dying because of drought. We must find an equilibrium. We must be able to take care of our citizens on both sides. And in areas where people are dying of droughts, particularly on their periphery, you find that water flows to the ocean. And a lot of water flows to the ocean untapped, and it's not our responsibility to feed the ocean with the fresh water, to the extent where we deny our own citizens access to clean, healthy water. Mr. Speaker, if we manage our water resources well, it also requires that we manage our land resources well, where we can get check dams, so to say, and allow water to sink, so it does not have to go out, so that you can retrieve it at a time when you need it. We are actually at a very rudimentary level of development of water resources, but it's one sector in which over time we should be able to catch up countries like in South Asia, which are largely dry, but do not have the problem. The agriculture is still thriving because they manage water resources well. With those few remarks, I commend this effort, the social paper on water policy, because I think it's a big step in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Tuitoek Kamuren, member for Mogotio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to rise and support this report on the sessional water paper number 1 of 2021. Mr. Speaker, the situation concerning the water situation in this country is still not good. In a population of about 50 million people in Kenya, it's about 59% of the people in Kenya receive clean water. That means another 41% is yet to receive this clean water. 29% of our population also have good sanitation. So the rest, almost 2/3, lack adequate sanitation. So this policy paper, I guess, should really address the issue of access to clean water, the issue of developing water resources in this country so that we can actually address the issue of water shortage. I know the chair talked about water harvesting in his speech. He also talked about the issues surrounding the policies in which the national government will employ to make sure that we develop these water resources. I know we have the issue of water is a devolved function. At the same time, the national government also have some part of that task to develop water resources in Kenya. When it comes to major dams, which are inter-county, the national government has spent a lot of money on developing these big dams like Chemasusu, Tuake Dam, Tiba, and others which are now currently being developed by the national government. But we also expect the county government to look into aspects of last mile in terms of water connectivity, carrying water to the households. Currently, I see like in Chemasusu, Mr. Speaker, the national government has done a good job in terms of developing and distributing the major pipelines which will carry the water to major towns in Mogotio and Ravine and so Rongai areas. But we see the county governments are not really working hard to make sure the last mile connectivity is done in terms of water. So this particular paper, I think, will go a long way in aligning and actually outlining the roles of the national government and the counties so that we all join forces in making sure that we develop these water resources and also carry this water to the people. Because one of the issues which is really major in development is water access. I know we are looking at dams, we are looking at boreholes, developing boreholes, and also managing our rivers effectively, because the rivers also are our main sources of water for very many communities. Especially, we have the issue of the northern Kenya, which also needs special addressing. Right now, when we have a very serious drought, like we are now experiencing in the northern Kenya, we should already have developed serious sound policies to developing water resources or water accessibility in those areas. We need to look at putting more money, investment in those areas, because we want those areas also to open up. Areas like Turkana, where there was a big water source called Lotakipi, which up to now has not been developed adequately. There was an idea that it was a bit saline, it was a little bit more, the salinity was high, but I think we are now having technology in which we can actually make that water fresh water. So access to water to many towns and to many cities is very crucial if we have to develop as a nation. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say I support this particular report, which will go a long way in addressing the water issues in Kenya in the current century. Thank you.
Honorable Mwangiboro. That member has taken leave. Let's have Honorable Shadrach Mose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to also contribute to this very important session of paper number 1 of 2021 on the national water policy. And thus the saying that water is life. Honorable Speaker, water is a social and economic good which is critical for any country to realize sustainable development. And so, Honorable Speaker, despite the fact that water is a devolved function, one would appreciate that it is applied in both the levels of government, that is at the national level and at the county levels. This sessional paper, Honorable Speaker, provides a good framework upon which the levels, both the levels of government, will prepare their policies and the strategies to effectively deliver on their mandates on water service delivery. Honorable Speaker, the issue of water is actually a problem in this country. We experience diverse situations and very unfortunate scenarios because like now, if you go to the western side, like Kisi, there are a lot of rains. There are a lot of rains causing a lot of havoc. If you go to places like Nsoia and all those places, there are floods killing people. When you look at the upper side, like the northern side, there is a terrible drought. And Honorable Speaker, actually, what calls into action is how we handle the water resource. So that at the end of the day, when we have abundance of water, when it's raining, how much do we do in ensuring that we tap the water resource? So this national water policy provides a good framework upon which we can be able to deal with the aspect of water. Honorable Speaker, water is life, as I said, and our Constitution, Honorable Speaker, guarantees every Kenyan to clean water, to a healthy environment, and to very reasonable standards of sanitation. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, like if you look at our schools, how prepared are we in providing clean water to our children? In a number of occasions, you'll find that the schools are not equipped with even boreholes. They are not equipped with, tanks to harvest the clean water. So, Honorable Speaker, this policy, this water policy, is really an integral component in ensuring that we provide clean water to our people. Honorable Speaker, national water policy also aims to accelerate the re-engineering of the water sector by providing clarity on mandate and consolidate the roles of various sector actors, including the national and county governments. Honorable Speaker, this paper also provides a framework for sustainable management and financing of water resources. It also provides a need for water harvesting and storage, and equitable and efficient and universal access to water supply. I know, Honorable Speaker, there are various challenges that arise, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude, this is a policy in the right direction, and we should move with speed and approve it as a House for purposes of effecting the same. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Honorable Oduolo Baka. Will you get the mic? Yes.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I just want to support this as well because we all know the importance of water, and without water, we cannot be alive. Even animals cannot be alive, so it is important. It's a very good policy. We know that in this country, we have had problems with water. When we have water, it can be excess, and we have floods, and people suffer during floods. And that is the kind of water that needs to be protected or collected and protected. It should not be seen to go to waste. But somehow, we always just let it go, and people drown in the floods, people suffer, and we do not use that water or collect it to use it later. So I think the first thing here is also to ensure that the water that goes to waste can always be collected and reserved for future use. So I think that's one good area that we need to consider, and the policy really catches that as well. The second part is where people just don't have water at all. And as we know that we have water underground, therefore boreholes, sinking of boreholes is very, very important. So the policy really looks at how we can get resources. Well, where can we get water? How can we preserve it? And how can we utilize it? So I think all these sections are very, very important in the way we are looking at this policy. And so I support it for the purpose that it takes care of every aspect of how water can be protected, how it can be made clean, and how it can be utilized by everybody in this country. I support. Thank you.
Honorable Chirue. Yes, proceed.
I'm requesting, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity also to support this very important policy that is speaking about water. And we all know that water is life. And now that this policy has come to the floor of this House, we as women, especially women, we need to support this policy. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we all know that water that is being used in Egypt is coming from East Africa. And one of the sources is Lake Victoria. And you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, this Lake Victoria is in our country, and it is so shameful that other countries are benefiting from our water. And in our country, we don't have adequate water. Mr. Speaker, sir, I remember right now we are going through a problem of COVID-19. And in most schools, they don't have water. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I believe this policy is going to address the issue of water harvesting. Mr. Speaker, sir, you know the issue of water in some part of this country is what is even causing conflict. And I know you know very well that this is a natural resource. So, and I believe this policy is going to address it. Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't see the reason why, as Kenyans, they don't have clean, adequate water. We have always heard about floods, and floods in very many parts of this country are killing people. And within a very short while, if today, right now, we have rains, adequate rains, and if the rains stops today, within another 2 months, we shall be in trouble because of non-provision of water. And it is so shameful because this shows that we don't have proper policies of protecting and harvesting our water. Mr. Speaker, sir, in most of the schools, they are built with iron sheets. And you know, they are not able to even harvest their water. So it is my plea that in this policy, farmers of this country will be assisted to harvest water. There are those related matters with the issue of water, and that is forest cover. So the farmers of this country should also be assisted to make sure that part of their farms are under forest cover and protection of riverbanks. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to believe that there are those policies that speaks about the protections of rivers. But it's unfortunate that you will find that most people do their farming to the riverbanks. I mean, there is no kind of protection and there is no policy that protects our rivers. So it is my plea that this policy will be speaking about the protection of our rivers and the protections of our wetlands. It is our high time as Kenyans, again, that we need to also include our children and train them on the issue of water and the issue of planting of trees. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm sure very many people are ready to plant trees, especially during this time, this raining moment. But they don't have seedlings. It means the government is not even ready to provide seedlings for those people who are ready to plant trees, either in their farms or in their public institutions. We really need to be responsible, all of us as Kenyans. So in this case, the relevant ministry should make sure that they provide adequate seedlings. They need to provide adequate training to actually target the women and the youths of this country. Want to believe that each and every item that is mentioned under this policy will be undertaken and will be implemented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I support this policy.
Honorable Jeremiah Kioni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It appears like there's nobody very near me. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to also support this policy paper, number 1 of 2021, or 2021, and thank the ministry for having come up with this policy. It is important to mention, Mr. Speaker, that when we devolved water, this was one of the requirements of the Constitution that a water policy be developed so that the national government and the county government are able to manage this resource, because the county government cannot and could not have managed this resource without the support or the involvement of the national government. This water policy is timely. It helps us deal with issues of management of water as a resource, how we harvest or harvesting and storage, the supply services, sewerage, the education and training, research in the sector. It also addresses issues of climate change and disaster risk management and education eradication. It deals with mainstreaming of water and gender, provision of water to vulnerable groups and the youth, planning, mobilization, and financing, among many other issues, Mr. Speaker. And I think it is important to mention that where we come from, Nyandarua, we provide water to your county like Laikipia, Nakuru, Nairobi, Nyeri, but even within our own county, we have very many of our residents without, or inhabitants without water. And as we manage this resource, that management means that if there is a lot of water from where you come from, before it is transported or taken to other places, it is only fair that those who are near also are supplied with water. Mr. Speaker, I come from an area called Nyandarua, Daragwa, Kanyagia, Sibara, Chamata, that whole area of Pesi. And the last time water was ever piped was back in 1974. This was done by J.M. Kariuki through a project that was referred to as Krema Water Project. Children from this area don't know how piped water looks like. Yet, we supply all those counties with water. As we think through this policy, Mr. Speaker, and as we celebrate the writing or passing of this policy on water, it is important that those in the Ministry of Water understand that that area requires the kind of attention that has been given to other areas. I applaud them for what they have done, but they need to make sure that they become alive to the needs of the people from Daragwa, and I can say from Nyandarua. Mr. Speaker, Daragwa is the home of the only freshwater lake in Mount Kenya region. And for the many who do not know, we refer to the lake as Lake Orborosat. And yet, even when we have that freshwater lake, very little management of that resource is evident. I believe that with this policy, we should be seeing more of better management of the lake, and of course also ensuring that those who are near the lake also benefit from it. Mr. Speaker, let me also thank the National Irrigation Board, NIB, I think that's what we still refer to them, or agency. NIA, National Irrigation Agency, because within the last 2-3 years, they have demonstrated what kind of change they can bring to a country. They have done water plants in my constituency, and I'm aware among many other constituencies, and the livelihood of those individuals who have benefited from those water plants have changed drastically. Some have even bought new vehicles,
from the produce they have produced from the farms that there before produced nothing. So I would want to thank the CEO, Bwana Mugambi, of course, under the management or under the leadership of the CS and the PS and the engineers who have been there. But as I conclude and ask that we all agree to adopt this report, Mr. Speaker, let me also appeal to them again that without doubt, an area called Daragwa has been forgotten by Kirago and company. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Murugara, Itonga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to add my voice to the debate on the national water policy, the sessional paper we are discussing today, with emphasis on the fact that water is actually our source of livelihood, both to us, our livestock and agriculture, and therefore the country needs a very sound water policy so that there is equitable distribution of the water to all communities, to all peoples, in all counties in the Republic. Mr. Speaker, as you speak today, there are some areas of Kenya that are fully watered, which means every household enjoys piped water, while we also have other areas where water is as scarce as we can imagine. In fact, in those areas, you find that we are still in the Stone Age, whereby we have to dig shallow wells in dry riverbeds to collect water, and the mode of transport of that water is water jerrycans and donkeys. I think as an independent country, 50, 60 years down the line, we should actually be moving away from this with a clear-cut policy that every household in Kenya should actually be provided with clean, piped water. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to actually express the case for my county, Tharaka Nithi, and my constituency, Tharaka. It's vitally important that we do have a paradigm shift in this country so that we have water, especially in my constituency, Tharaka. While we do have several rivers that traverse this constituency, emanating from the Mount Kenya, Nyambene Hills, and the other highlands up, of recent past, we have been able to see these rivers drying up purely because of climatic changes, and sometimes because of what is actually called illegal blockage of water channels by people living upstream. The net effect of this is that the people living downstream do suffer acute water shortage. And if this is not managed well, it can actually lead to conflict. The government needs to put in place a policy which will ensure that those upstream are able to share water equitably with those who are downstream. And this is the case for the Tharaka constituency vis-a-vis the neighboring upstream County Meru and the other places that are upstream. I'm happy to note the chairman of the Environment Committee, Honorable Karekembiuk, is my neighbor, and I always ask him when he's dealing with water, he must make a provision of a chapter of water for the Tharaka constituency. I know this is in the pipeline, and the able chairman is actually going to do this so that my constituency is also equitably served with water like the other areas of this republic. As a nation and as Kenya, let us harness all the water that is available, whether rainwater, whether river water, whether water from freshwater lakes. Let us put this into use, and we so do by constructing whether mega dams or small dams, dikes, whatever other sources we can do this. And the county government must also play its role the county government of Tharaka Nithi, because as we speak today, we are still waiting for the short rains to set in, and I'm told many areas in my constituency, including Tharaka North, Tharaka South, in some areas actually do not have water. Let the county move the speed to provide schools with water, whether through the use of bowsers or any other mode that is going to ensure that children have sufficient water in school. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I do support.
Honorable Udo.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also join in the debate concerning session paper number 1 of 2021 on national water policy. Honorable Speaker, we grew up knowing and being told water is life. At independence, one of the social goals of the government of Kenya was to have piped water all over the country, to all homes, to all villages. I think we were supposed to have piped water by the year 2010. It came and passed without achieving that objective. It's also tried to indicate the provisions of Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya on economic and social rights places a lot of reference or a lot of emphasis on clean and safe water in adequate quantities. Honorable Speaker, Article 43 also talks about protection of the environment, clean and safe environment, which invariably involves water. Honorable Speaker, at this particular time in our life, in our age, after almost 50 years of independence, it was everybody's expectation that there will be enough water to cover all the human needs, both for domestic, animal, and for agriculture. The fact on the ground is that that has not been achieved, and we are progressively having cases where there's inadequate water supply, even compared to a few years ago. Doing literature review indicates that quite a number of issues that have continued to really result in this undersupply of water. Obviously, climatic change has often been cited as one of the reasons. Rising population has been cited one of the reasons. But most likely has been just poor governance, management of water harvesting, water storage, and water management in terms of the reticulation, in terms of cost recovery, and the rest. It's therefore the hope that this policy being put forward today, once approved by Parliament, will help address these challenges that have continually denied access to clean and safe water. Honorable Speaker, session paper number 1 of 1999 on National Policy on Water Resource Management and Development rejigged the water management sector completely. It was hoped again this will enable efficient distribution, efficient production, so to speak, and reticulation and distribution of water. There have been hits and misses. There have been successes and challenges. It's also hoped that this policy, with the implementation matrix that has been in place and the policy shift that has been recommended, will be able to address those issues that have come forward. Honorable Speaker, the issue of environmental protection. Honorable Speaker, this country has got several water catchment areas or catchment towers. There has been very many controversial decisions. There have been very many controversial actions in terms of protection of these water towers. Because of the politics of the day, because of rivalry of some nature and here, we have continued to degrade these water catchment towers to the effect, the end result being that Kenya has got one of the lower water per capita in this world. It's surprising, Honorable Speaker, that we have fairly big water catchment areas. We have Lake Victoria, Honorable Speaker. We have the Indian Ocean, Honorable Speaker. It beats all logic that Kenya still remains a water deficient country. Yet we have all these issues. Honorable Speaker, the regulatory framework brought about by devolution, where parts of the water function was devolved to the county governments, reluctant county governments, has caused it practically impossible. Many of these waterworks, water agencies are unable to collect, they are unable to distribute water, are unable to recover the cost, and are unable to maintain those facilities. As I speak, Honorable Speaker, my constituency of Funyula, despite the many billions we have received under devolution through the Busia County, has got the lowest water reticulation. Unfortunately, because water is devolved, there's very little we can do. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Waluke, member for Sirisia.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this water resource. Mr. Speaker, it is important for us as a country to take this issue of water seriously. Mr. Speaker, we've got water, a lot of water that goes to west. All the rivers, Mr. Speaker, in areas like Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria receives water from Rift Valley, from Western. Mr. Speaker, yet the people surrounding those areas, like where we come from, Mr. Speaker, as I speak, my constituency, Sirisia, doesn't have water. But we are surrounded by very big rivers, like River Nzoia, like River Luahaha, and River Malakisi. Big rivers. But there's no water, Mr. Speaker. People cry about water every day. Women go to look for water even in the night. They woke up at 3 a.m. to go look for water, Mr. Speaker. And yet the water is there, just pass on us, and goes to Egypt, Mr. Speaker. The three countries, Mr. Speaker, in East Africa, that is Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, provides water to Egypt, Mr. Speaker. And there's no any payment. But as the little water that we use, like here in Nairobi or in our homes,